Hello, welcome back to the RetroBreak podcast. Today we have another very special guest on the episode with us today. We have John Rue. John, please go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hey, how's it going? I'm John Rue from the Retro Room Games. Nice to be on. I appreciate you having me again. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been a long time coming. I've wanted to speak to you for a long time, so this is going to be good.
Exciting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely always a pleasure to chat with you. So,
For people that don't know, do you want to start with what your company, Retro Room, is about, as we'll be getting into that in a little bit?
sure. Yeah, yeah. I basically develop and publish video games for retro consoles. We've been taking like some canceled intellectual property and giving it releases like decades later, and sometimes working with indie developers and sometimes just my own games. Yeah, and we're trying to dip into doing some more stuff. We're trying to dip into doing some film stuff and trying to get into I've been in contact with Nintendo and Xbox about doing some modern platform stuff. So yeah.
It's crazy how far you've come in just the few years since you started this.
Dude,
It's mad.
you know what's crazy? I'll tell you what's really crazy. You were one of the first people who really shouted out my game. So, yeah, it's really like I have to give you a lot of thanks and a lot of credit for that
I've got it
because,
right here.
yeah, there we go. That one says Game Boy on it too.
Yeah, the
Yikes.
original version.
Yeah, yeah. It does not say that
No.
anymore. Yeah, but yeah, I gotta thank you for that. Yeah, it was it's just been a really wild journey. I don't even know how I've gotten to this point, honestly. It's just kind of like shooting from the hip and an accident, I feel lucky,
Yeah, yeah, crazy. Rewind a bit just so that everyone's got a bit of context. Before we get into Quest Arrest, let's go right back to the beginning. Like, how did you get into gaming? Let's begin there.
Gaming in general?
Yeah, yeah. What was like some of your first games that you ever played, or the ones that you remember as a kid?
My aunt and uncle had an NES in their house in their kitchen, and they had the classic Mario Duck Hunt combo with the zapper gun. They had Dragon Warrior
Okay, yeah,
and Arkanoid. So I really started with I would say those three games were probably my first experience with video games.
that's a really good set of
So
games as your first entry, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was in the '90s, so it was well after they came
Mm.
out, maybe a decade after they came out. Excuse me. Yeah, maybe a decade after they came out. But I just was, you know, I was lucky to be able to play it at their house, and then I somehow stumbled across getting a Sega Genesis Mega Drive for UK folks.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and it just kind of stumbled from there. I got a Super Nintendo, and then I just started just gaming. It's just been like a really regular part of my life forever now, for as long as I can remember.
How about the Game Boy? Did you have a Game Boy growing up?
Oh yeah,
Like,
I had the original Game Boy. I experienced the driving in the car as the sun was going down and trying to catch the street
oh
lights,
yeah,
to play my game, and I finally ended up getting like one of those little lights that plugs into the side of it, and I was like, "Whoa!" and the magnifying
yeah.
magnifier on it. But yeah, I grew up with a Game Boy for
That's
sure.
brilliant. Playing the Game Boy in the car, that's one of my favourite childhood memories. Every time we would go on holiday, I wouldn't want to get out of the car. Usually kids are asking like, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And I'm like, "Can we
Yeah.
drive for another hour or two?
I'm playing
I've got Pokemon to catch."
Pokemon. Yeah, yeah, I understand. It's funny now today because I can't play games in the car because I'll get car
Oh no.
sick, and yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely did as a kid.
Yeah, that's brilliant. What were some of your favourite Game Boy games?
I love the Zelda game. I love the Pokemon games. They did really good Donkey Kong ports for the Game Boy Color, and
Yeah, really impressive.
yeah, they were super good. The Mario games were also really good. So yeah, there's so many good games. I remember playing it was a Dragon Quest game. Maybe it was like a monster. I forgot what it was called. But
Yeah, Dragon Warrior Monsters.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a really good game. Yeah, I haven't played it since. But I remember loving it as a kid. It was a
You
cool
should
one.
try it again. I actually played it again a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it.
I always love revisiting old titles, so it's something I'll have to do.
So yeah, Game Boy. How did you? Well, I guess did you make any games before getting onto Quest Arrest? Had you had a bit of experience in game development at that point?
Yeah, I was working on some Unity projects, and I was like, I just dove in headfirst in maybe like 2013. and I was making a pretty cool like space game where I was like taking I went to the NASA website and I took the pictures of the moon, and I used that, for my like pictures of my planet that I was on. And it was like this like platformer where you jump from asteroid to asteroid, and it was actually pretty cool for like a first little project, but it was completely broken and you could easily like fall off the map, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I also messed with a another game that was kind of like a zombie game. I was working on like a AI for an enemy to chase you once you get into a certain, vicinity. And my computer crashed and I lost those files, and all
Oh
that's
no.
left is sweet videos of it. But yeah, I gave up for a little while after that. And then my dad is a programmer, so he was really interested in teaching me how to program like microcontrollers like the Arduino. And we
Hmm.
started messing with stuff to like turn on lights in my house, and like make like little sensors with alarms and stuff like that. And yeah, it kind of spiraled from there into working with some game back into game design. And like I really can't like I have this shiny object syndrome whenever it comes to like developing games. I have messed with so many engines now and have so many unfinished projects that I'm gonna get to one day, I promise.
I'm the same, and I really struggle to choose what engine to use as well. There's so many good ones out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, especially now it's like expanded and everything's gotten easier, and you have like all these software development kits. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna develop a game for every single one day.
I mean, even on the Game Boy, there's like 4 or 5 different options to go with now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great options too, especially from beginner to expert.
Yeah.
It's just a no better time to get into game development if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
and I know you went to school for it, so
Yeah, and what have I got to show for it? Where's my game?
yeah, it's funny how that works. Yeah, I went to
Yeah.
school for music actually. I was like a music major, and
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I don't have anything to show for that either.
Have you got a lot of
So
projects going on in the background, music related, or have you kind of put that on the back burner?
I was doing like management and stuff for artists
Okay, cool.
before, and then COVID came, and that kind of like shifted my focus to this game stuff, and
Yeah.
it just ended up kind of spiraling out of control, like I said. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
I haven't looked back. Yeah.
So you started making Quest Rest during lockdown then? Or you'd already started?
I did before. I think it was before lockdown. Yeah, it's just that I started selling it, and I think maybe because everybody was kind of trapped inside, like they were just like there was this huge influx of like buying and collecting games, and I think that really contributed to maybe my success with Quest Arrest.
A lot of things like digital things really took off that year, didn't they? I mean, I saw a big spike in my channel as well. Like, just more people had more time to, have fun with things like that. But yeah, great from a game dev point of view too.
It really launched everything for me, and I'm doing so much now. It's crazy, and I have so much like that I haven't even shared with the world yet that I'm gonna do. That's awesome stuff. And so yeah, it's I for I guess I'm one of the only people who can say like thank you, COVID.
Yeah, it helps a lot of people out. I know it's a bit
Yeah,
awkward to say that,
oddly,
but it did.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
now I
yeah.
can work from home full time. That wouldn't have been an option before.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, that's great.
not full time making videos just yet, but maybe one day.
Soon you're working. I see you working
I
hard,
know.
and
Yeah, I put so much effort
honestly,
into it.
your channel's growing.
It is. I'm doing really well, which is exciting.
Yeah. If anybody deserves it, it's you.
Oh,
Yeah, for
thank you,
sure.
thank you. Yeah, and honestly, it was partially thanks to your games that I kept making these videos as well. Because
Oh,
when I got your feedback and you said how cool it was like
dude. Yeah,
the fact that I can make someone's day like that just from making a video. That's
for
just so cool.
sure. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, it was a groundbreaking kind of moment for me because I'd never really experienced that before.
Right, before we get ahead of ourselves, talk about the development of Quest Arrest. How did you decide to go with the Game Boy Studio engine? Let's start with that.
It was just one that I fell upon. I had like a
Mm.
hundred engines open. I had Godot open. I had Game Maker open. I
Okay.
had NES Maker open, and I just
So you
kind of
didn't go into it to make a Game Boy game in the beginning?
no, not at all. And I,
No.
I didn't go into it to like make anything out of it either. I just kind of was
Mm.
like trying to educate myself on like the programming that goes into a video game, like it was
Yeah.
much different than, creating for the microcontrollers like I was. And I just really wanted to understand. And my goal with Quest Arrest was literally to just create a game from that has a
Hmm.
start, a middle, and a finish. It's like that's it. There was nothing crazy, like there was no plan beyond just I want to make a game.
Yeah.
Maybe have it be fun, but that was the only goal.
Well, you pulled it off. I know a lot of people really enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah, yeah, it was like that. It was like when, it was an early adopter of GB Studio, so it
Mm.
was like in that early beta sort of version of it before they had platforming and there was no color and I
Yeah.
remember whenever I was developing Quest Rust, there was literally no real menus that you could use in the engine, so you had to kind of like find these like alternative ways to do certain things in the engine that are now just built into the engine that these new developers
Yeah.
are spoiled with, and
I know. I bet you look at it now and see all the possibilities that weren't
dude,
there for you.
it's so cool because there's so many talented people, way more talented than I, that are creating games and they're using these new tools that are implemented in GB Studio and they're making these like incredible projects that are
Mm.
just like fabulous, fascinating. So it's really cool to see that.
After Quest Arrest, obviously took off, did really well for you.
Right.
Is that when you set up Retro Room as a company,
Yeah,
or was there
yeah.
something else in between that?
You have to like pay for like like a business in the United States. You have to get like like an LLC and
Yep.
it's like three to $500, something like that. And I had sold Quest Arrest, and then I had got that a Metal Jesus shout out, and that ended
Yep.
up making me like $7,000 that month. Like, boom. It was just
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was working another job at the time. So it was like, whoa, this huge like influx of extra money. And I took all of that money and I just reinvested it into not only like p- turning this into a company, but like
Hmm.
into like trying to find other projects to work with. Because I was developing other stuff at the time, and it takes so long to develop a project, and I
Yeah.
figured there was other things that I could do in the meantime because like I said, I was working in the music industry, and that had died because of COVID. So I was like, man, I need to find something else to do. I have this money that I can invest. So I invested the money into other projects and yeah, I got lucky with a couple of like people who kind of introduced me to other people who introduced me to other people kind of
Mm.
thing. And then it started going into doing the licensing and there was a company that was like, hey, we have this intellectual property. Um, we're not doing anything with it. Do you want to do something with it? And I was like, absolutely, and yeah,
Wow,
that's
that's cool. So you just kind of stumbled across the licensing side of it then.
it was
It
kind
wasn't planned at the
n
start.
none of this was planned. None of it has ever been planned. Yeah, it's all
that's
just
that's the best way, right?
yeah, it's I wish that I could tell people that I was some kind of super genius or something or
Mm.
like, oh, like I this was all methodical, but no, no, it was just kind of like the universe kind of just guiding me into these directions and just sort of
Mm.
like giving me these opportunities like one by one. I guess if you try to do things like I was trying to actively reach out to people for licenses, but I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never done it before, it was I did things that were similar in the music industry by like reaching out for like some of the artists that I was managing to get features from people who are like famous, and it would help, they would get a
Yeah.
feature on their song and it would help blow them up. So I was like somewhat, involved with like sending corporate emails and trying to find, licensing in that kind of way. But in the video game industry, it was really new to me. And I made a couple of friends. I made friends with the people who worked with the Evercade, and I made friends with a couple of other people who own companies that do intellectual property licensing, and it just I started those deals started coming in, and now
Yeah.
now
Yeah, I can see how it's fitting together. You were
yeah,
heading in the right direction the whole time. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah, and it just
Without realizing it.
yeah, it just sort of worked out. I just kind of grabbed where as the fruit came low, I grabbed it, and that was the concept. And now it's like become like this cool, my entire goal whenever I first started post, not even game development. I created the retro room well before I was developing games. And
Mm.
the whole entire goal of it was really simple. It was just a like a place where I could talk about old stuff that I like, like Blockbuster and retro games and stuff like that. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make a business or I'm gonna start developing video games or no, I just wanted to talk with people like you about this kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, and it's grown into this thing where now it's like I want to keep that scene alive, and I'm helping to feed that scene by
Hmm.
developing games.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way because it shows that you're really interested, in the topic and not just doing it for money.
Yeah,
People can feel the enthusiasm and the realness from it, I guess,
sure.
which you can't always get that with just a brand name. So
A lot of times there's money involved and people really, that especially with tools like GB Studio, you start getting these businesses that come together just for the profits or whatever. But no, it's strictly
yeah,
passion for me.
I guess there's easier ways to make money
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And better
rather than
money.
making a Game Boy game.
Yeah. You'll make better money elsewhere.
But yeah, I'm so glad it's working out for you. Yeah,
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
absolutely.
Hey, likewise, with your YouTube channel. Yeah.
Let's see what else is here. Gelatinous. Tell me a bit about this one. This was a joint project with you and a
Correct.
friend, as
Yeah.
far as I know.
I did the development on it, and I think whenever we started, his name's Steven, the guy that I teamed up with on that.
Yeah.
And Steven, he was into like Metroid and Castlevania type games, and I had never really played either of those franchises, which is like blasphemy, I know, to some people. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Cancelled.
Yeah, yeah, and it was just not the things that I really got into as a kid. And I played Super Metroid, a little bit, but I never beat it or anything like that. And
Yeah.
Castlevania games were always super hard, and I suck at video games. So, like, I would play for a little while, die a bunch of times, and then quit. But it really wasn't anything that I had very much experience with. And GB Studio had just expanded to the 2.5 version where they implemented the platforming.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to make a platformer, and it's kind of neat for me to go in completely blind, and him as a designer to kind of just like I would close my eyes and he would just guide me, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where that project originated from. I saw him doing some art, and I liked his art. It was cool. It was like this interesting sort of like science fiction style, and I was like, that's cool. I would love to work with you on some stuff, and we kind of rolled into doing that project. So it was like creating this really hard platformer that I had no experience in the genre with, and I thought that was kind of a neat way of going into designing a game. Um,
Yeah, it's an interesting way of planning it. So,
yeah,
did you learn a lot through the development of that game then?
I
Like what works and what doesn't from a design point of view?
absolutely learned a whole lot of just about like the genre in general
Mm.
and like just like programming because I was making an RPG before, and this is completely different than something that's like story driven or slow paced. This is more like action packed
Yeah.
and a fast paced sort of game. But I went in really not knowing anything about that kind of development, and I learned like so much about it. I feel like, if I were to go back and do the same thing with Quest Arrest, I learned so much about development through that.
Yeah.
If I went to go back and do either of those genres again, like it would be crazy. It would be really, really amazing. And I'm working with Steven again on like an upcoming project on something like a little bit bigger and completely different again. We flipped the script again, and we're doing
Yeah.
like an adventure title. So it's gonna be cool. Yeah, it was an interesting ride. It took us like a
Yeah,
year,
that's
and
great.
and it sucks because in the middle of the development cycle of that, they released like the new GB Studio, and that's whenever all these really cool features came into play.
Uh
So
did you feel any pressure once you saw new games coming out and were you kind of comparing it to what you'd got or did you kind of build it separately without too much outside influence?
oh, definitely without very much outside influence. We saw that they were releasing that, and like I knew that as soon as updates on that of the engine, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to explode the engine. There's going to be so much more new talent that's going to come through this, and it's going to like smoke our game. You know what I'm saying? Like, same with Quest RS. It's like, dude, Quest RS was created on software that was like prehistoric compared to what they have out now, you know? So, yeah, it was like kind of put that pressure on us that I really knew that there were some artists out there that were going to create some really groundbreaking stuff with the new updates. So kind of put us, we were already at a point in that project where we are like, man, we've been working on this for a little too long. We should probably move on to something else and just call it done. I mean, when you're working on a game development project, you could like work on it for the rest of your life. And I see that happen with a lot of developers. They never release a project because you could always update this or make this a little better or whatever. You got to call it quits
Yeah,
at some point in time. And, and there was like some obvious criticism towards gelatinous and sometimes towards Questress, and a lot of times it's well warranted, and it helps me become a better developer. And I think like I said, we could have worked on it forever to try to make it better, but there was a time that we had to call it quits and just learn from our release. There was a little bit of a rush that was put onto us to try to get it out there, because I knew that as the engine was released with these new updates, that there was going to be some really groundbreaking stuff happening, and it was really going to blow the technology at like advanced times 100. So we just
yeah,
kind of had to call it done on our end, and and just put it out there, and try to learn from what we had created. And that's really where I think a lot of the education came from, was having to call it done. Like I was saying, that you have to call a project done. It's really hard to do in game design. Could always update things 100 times and work on it forever. But
yeah. It's difficult. Did the fact that it was a Kickstarter help with that deadline, because you knew there was people waiting to play the game, so you couldn't delay it indefinitely?
we were already like pretty close to being done whenever we kickstarted it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So that was more to do with the production of the cartridges and
right.
box and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I had already spent a lot of the company money on other projects to try to get in the background, and
Hmm.
we wanted to see if we could get some crowdfunding to get that go the physical production part going. But the game was already like 99% done. It was like pretty much there. We felt
Yeah.
confident. I don't really like to take people's money if I'm not like truly confident that I'm going to be able to like deliver on a project. So yeah, we were there.
That's a really good way of doing it, because I know a lot of Kickstarters maybe take on a bit too much and then they can't really deliver
Yeah, I didn't want to be that guy.
because they weren't
Yeah.
that far along. Yeah, so that's really good advice to anyone who's listening and is thinking of starting a Kickstarter as well.
Yeah,
Like, don't launch it too soon.
it's a risk every time, and
Yeah,
like I said before, I had lost projects to just a hard drive failure, and but now of course I back them up, and put them in the cloud. But I'm just smart. But
yeah,
anything can happen, I mean, so I prefer to be close to finished or finished before I take people's money.
yeah. That's good. That's really good advice as well. How about on the game dev side? Like, not, what do they call it? Scope creep, feature creep. How did you keep that under control when you were designing these
What
games?
do you mean?
Did you?
Oh, like over biting, like.
Yeah, like coming up with too many
Oh,
ideas
that's so
and not
easy.
knowing where to stop. I
That's
know.
the easy
I was
part.
wondering how you deal with that. How do you cut a line in it and say, that's it, we're not adding anything else
Well,
now?
whenever I'm developing a game by myself, I
Hmm.
like to just kind of start from the ground and just kind of see where it takes me. Whenever I was developing like Quest to Rest, I didn't really have functions in mind. I just started playing with functions in the engine until I found something I thought
Right.
was fun, you know? And there was like some functions that I cut out of the game because they were pretty broken, but they were still like super fun, Like there was like some actual action segments in Quest to Rest that I had to cut out because they were just broken. But they were it
Hmm.
was still like a lot of fun, and I had wanted to refine them, but again, time was the problem. So, but yeah, I think whenever I'm developing, instead of like coming up with all these ideas and stuff beforehand, I kind of try to come up with them as I go sometimes because I want them to be fun to do, you know. Sometimes whenever you come up
Yeah.
with a function in your mind, it sounds good on paper, but you start messing with it and it's not as fun whenever you're actually doing it, you know. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. I know people that do it both ways.
right.
Some people have huge like design documents and
Right.
everything's planned out from start to finish,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
probably the way you
there's
should. But
no. I think your way makes more sense because you can see what's actually enjoyable to play
yeah, I mean,
before you get too far
I
along.
liked
You know?
Nintendo had that philosophy. They were like, "Oh, graphics, like we don't care about graphics. We just want it to be a fun
Yeah,
game." You know, like
yeah,
and I really liked that concept that they had laid out there. So I kind of, wanted to do something that was just fun to play, you know. So
yeah. It's a good
I
approach,
think so.
and you'll probably have more fun making it because you'll stumble across these things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you might not have even considered
Yeah,
otherwise.
you could have a story in place, but the actual gameplay
Yeah.
parts of it, you can kind of put together as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're making me want to make another game now.
You should. Yeah, you need
I
to.
really want to. I haven't got the time.
Yeah, time is
I'll find
crazy.
the time somehow.
I
Somehow.
understand. That's something I definitely understand.
Yeah. Two other games that I wanted to ask you about. Um,
hmm
Big to Small, obviously, which I've got right here,
Ah,
and
yes.
Time Nights as well. These are two that you published. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ha-
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Tell me a bit about the publishing side then, compared to developing.
Um, whenever I go to publish a game, now I have like this publishing company and we have some games under our belt as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Um, whenever I go to publish a game, I have to play it and it has to be a fun game. And I think that's really basic, rules for a
Yeah.
publishing company. But um, for big to small, the developer reached out to me through an email and he
Okay.
wasn't on social media. Um, he had open sourced his game and he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I'm interested in doing some publishing stuff for this." Um, and it just kind of rolled from there. I really liked the project because it wasn't a GB Studio game. It
Mm.
was he built it like from the ground up in assembly, like a freaking robot that he is, a monster, you
There's some
know.
crazy people out there.
Dude, and he is one of them, man. He's a
Yeah.
very talented guy, and I really enjoy him. He's a really nice dude. But yeah, the game, I feel like it's a really underrated game. I think maybe because the way that it looks, it's like kind of cutesy, it's got
Yeah.
little animals, and it's not like freaking laser beams and spaceships and stuff, so it's overlooked, I think, a lot of the times, but it's such a good game. It's so challenging, and I had such a good time playing with it. I picked it up and I couldn't put it back down for like an hour. I was just sitting there, I was like, okay, this is really cool. 2 hours, and time flew, and I was like, okay, and that kind of really showed me like this is gonna be like a good experience, and it's lasting a long time to play. So.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I liked the idea that he was really open-minded about doing anything with it. He really just I think he had like 30 plays on his website or something like that, people who played. He really just wanted to get other people to play it, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna blow this game up for you, bro. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna do whatever I can to get as many people to play it as possible. We put it on multiple different platforms. We, sent out press releases and I,
Yeah.
pushed it as hard as I could, and then all of a sudden it's this thing that, thousands of people are playing now. So, yeah, I think he was really happy with that outcome, and I was really happy with that outcome too because I think it's a deserving game.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic. I mean, like you
yeah,
said, probably just from looking at it, you wouldn't give it a second glance. But yeah,
yeah,
now you've got it out there,
yeah,
and now it's under
yeah,
your label.
yeah.
People can actually play it and find out it is a
Right.
really good game, and it
It's
is
a
a really good
banger.
game.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved
It's a
it.
good
Yeah,
one.
I
Yeah,
was
it's a
really
good one.
surprised. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad.
anyone who's listening, go and play Big to Small.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
Time Nights is a whole lot of fun. I really liked whenever the developer had came to me and told me kind of I played the game, but and it was really fun. It's like an action platformer, but I really liked the idea that he was creating that game as like he got inspired from his two children. And that's kind of like he
Okay, that's
wanted to
cool.
turn his kids into superheroes, and I thought that was really kind of a genuine cool backstory, I really liked that concept. The game was really fun to play. It's a short game, but it's short and sweet, I have some more stuff that we're working on. I'm working on with him in the future too. Time Nights is just now getting its release. Like I'm just finishing up the publishing on it and getting it to start shipping like this week, hopefully. But yeah, it's a really cool game. It's a GB Studio game, and yeah, I really liked that backstory of how his kids are the superheroes, and that really was an inspirational thing for me. And like I said, the game is fun to play. That's the most important part. If I pick up a game and it's mediocre, then it's tough to want to do publishing with it. And sometimes it happens. It's like I hate to be like the bearer of bad news towards people's games or
Mm,
anything, because they put a lot of work into them, and I understand. I'm a developer, but sometimes we just miss the mark, and that's okay. I've done it before, so
yeah,
everybody
that's
goes through
fair.
that. Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
you
part of
have
the.
to really. It's any
Yeah.
creative endeavor. You're gonna
It's
have some
it's
things that don't go
it's
to plan.
yeah, it's part, and there's always somebody who might enjoy it or who might not enjoy it. So it's
Yep.
it's just part of the process. And I really liked Time Nights the first time that I played it. I gave it a lot of time. I thought it deserved the attention that it's getting. And the developer is just a really passionate guy. I mean, he worked incredibly hard on doing press work on it, like just like I
Mm.
did. We both were pushing at the same time. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes developers just like take a back seat, but he was front seat and
Yeah.
screaming it from the rooftops the same way that I was. So I really liked his passion, and
Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. Some people try and get a publisher so they can stay away from the advertising
right.
side of it, but
Yeah, yeah. He was
that's
he
cool.
was not having that. Yeah, he was out there with the megaphone the same way. So yeah, I really like that. And he again was a nice guy too. So yeah, it's a
Awesome.
good one.
Yeah, that's great. So you've got both the development side and the publishing side down now, it sounds like. And you've
Sure,
got some
yeah.
great stuff in the works too.
Yeah, licensing too. Like we're doing the
Yeah.
like licensing on some of these like bigger companies and stuff like that instead of just indie games. It's like, I got to work with Chips Challenge and Airball, which is another one that was
Yeah, I
cool.
didn't bring up Chips Challenge. That must have been an exciting one for you because I know you said
Oh
you
man.
played that as a kid as well. So that must
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
mind blowing the fact that you actually
dude.
got the license to that.
That was the first license that I landed, and
Yeah.
I was looking. You know what I was trying? I was trying to get the license to Ski Free. I don't know if you ever
Okay.
played
Yeah.
Ski
Yeah. I
Free,
know
like
that.
the Windows game,
Yeah.
and Windows was just like not really into it. They're like, "Who's this guy?" I don't know who you are,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I accidentally stumbled across getting the license for Chips Challenge, which was just as good, to
Mm.
me. So yeah, playing as a kid, I was like hitting up all my childhood friends that I played it with, and I was like, dude, I get to do some publishing work for Chips Challenge, and it
Yeah, that
was
was really
really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
I remember you sent me the SNES version to test it out,
Yeah.
make sure it
Yeah,
works
yeah.
in
I,
50
well,
hertz.
I just wanted to see if it worked
Yeah.
on because I'm in the United States. I wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see how it worked with the PAL system.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
So
really surprised when you told me that. I was like, "Well, he's gone from making a Game Boy game to getting this like license and putting it on the SNES." Wow,
yeah, now it's gone like really out of control. Wait till you see what I have coming up soon.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Tell me a bit about Elland
Oh yeah,
and how that came about. This
Ellen.
is going to be a really interesting story.
Elland. Yeah, so um it was originally a Dune game that was never released.
Yeah.
Um it got canceled because I believe the company went bankrupt. Um I don't know, don't quote me on that,
Okay.
but I think
And
the company went bankrupt
this was
and
around 2002 ish when the
I think
GBA
so,
had just come out.
yeah. Right, right, yeah, and they had published and developed like a number of titles at that point
Right.
for like licensed titles for franchises, and the company went bankrupt, and somebody else. I mean, these things go like all of the property goes into auction, I guess, and some other company buys it up,
Yeah.
and in this case, they bought it up, and I'm pretty sure the project was just shelved. It was just like, oh, let's just put this in a box in the basement kind of thing. And it sat for 20 years, just unused,
Yeah. Was it
which is
finished?
a shame.
Was the game completed, or did you have
It was
to patch
It was
anything up?
close.
Right.
Yeah, we had to kind of tie up some loose ends, but it was so close that it was disappointing, you know.
Mm,
As a developer, like I think that's what really made me passionate about the project is that these developers worked really hard on this project just for it to get like not seen by anybody and just shelved and not get a proper release. And that to me I would be really upset if I worked really hard on a game and it just didn't. It was like pretty much done.
yeah.
It didn't get released. Like that sucks, you know. And yeah, that was the unfortunate fate of this game. Even though those developers get paid a salary or whatever, and you know they got paid for their work, it
It's the
just
time and
they
effort
don't.
that's been put into it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they don't get to see like they don't get to see the fruits, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that a developer wants to see. They want to see people play their game, and yeah, you know, I was offered the game, and I think it's because I was willing to do the work on it.
Mm,
It wasn't like going to be this project that you're gonna make all this freaking money. It's like no, you got to put money into the project, you know, and you know, in that case, we had to remove so much stuff from it. You know, we had to
I
just,
was gonna come up to that next. Like, obviously, it was the Dune license, and you weren't allowed to use that.
yeah,
So,
no.
how much work was that then? Scouring every little bit of the game to make sure it had all been taken out.
There's a tester that I work with. His name's Ryan, and he's really,
Yeah.
really awesome. And he just, we already were ripping stuff out of it, and I'm not a really big fan of Dune. I don't really, I've never really absorbed Dune content, so it was like fresh to me. Again,
Yeah.
I picked the game up and played it, and I was like, man, this game is a lot of fun, and I really
Mm,
enjoy it. It's super cool. It's like it's really fun. It was really ahead of its time in terms of like the development on it. It was like this first person like shooter game, and I thought it was super cool. I had no real experience with Dune, so I was like, dude, rip it out. Like let's
yeah.
I'll take it. Let's rip out the Dune stuff and release this game because
Yeah.
it's cool on its own. It holds up on its own. Sure, like you know, you might, you know, make if I were to, you know, some big company came along and got the Dune license and actually released it, maybe they'd make more money or whatever. But no, I didn't care about that. You know, I liked the game. I wanted to see it get a release. You know, after I released it, actually, like some of the developers had hit me up and were like, "Yo, that's super cool that we get to see it happen." Like I saw this on,
Oh,
you know,
fantastic.
yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
I saw an article on IGN talking about how this game I worked on 20 years ago is getting released, and I'm like, dude, you know, that's really cool, you know. So
Yeah. So finally, they get to see the fruits of their labor
yeah,
20
finally,
years later. Yeah.
yeah. So I
That's
definitely, yeah,
fantastic.
I felt really good about it. But we had to scour with like a fine tooth comb to try to pull out,
Yeah.
and over and over and over again, and have several people looking at this script to try to pull everything. And you know, at one point, I printed like 1,000 manuals for the game, the actual physical manuals,
Okay.
and the intellectual property owner like saw that there was some copywritten material in those manuals, so I had to just
Oh, no.
so I had to scrap them, get it redesigned, reprinted, and you know, so it just
Yeah.
went through this like intricate process of just vetting it and trying to get it to this point to where that we're not going to get in trouble from anybody to release it, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, it was an expensive and like a hard endeavor for sure.
Yeah. Worthwhile, though. And like you said, it's just such an impressive game as
Yeah,
well.
it's cool.
Like,
Yeah.
if it had have come out back then, I think people would have been all
Yeah,
over it.
yeah, it's really cool.
Mm,
You don't see very many like first person shooters for the GBA, and the ones that you do are
mm.
really impressive. There's like X versus Sever, that's a really cool one, and a couple of
Yeah, there are
others.
some really cool games.
Yeah.
The thing that was unique about this one, you can press the L and R buttons
Oh
to like
yeah.
go higher and lower as well, which is I've not
Yeah.
really played anything like that on the GBA before, so
Yeah,
that
it
was really
kind of
cool.
has this like feeling of like Descent or something like that, and
Yeah,
it's a cool game. Yeah, like I said, I really as soon as I played it, I was like, oh yeah, I want to get my hands on this and release it because of that. It was just a really fun game.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you did manage to, and it's out here now and
Yeah,
available on your website. So if anyone wants to
yeah,
go and check it
yeah.
out,
Yeah,
for
I was
sure.
really lucky to capture that one.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some more that you're eyeing up in the background.
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
yeah. It's some that I'm extremely excited, man. I just wish I could talk.
I know. It's all right. I won't make you say anything out loud. Is there anything else Retro Room related that I missed? I'm just trying to think now. I think I've covered the games on there that are public knowledge anyway.
Yeah. Airball was another one that
Oh
was
yeah,
canceled, and I ended up getting a license for and releasing it on the GBA and NES, and that was another one of those canceled projects that never got to see the light of day. And I really like those kind of projects, and I think I have three more games that are previously canceled that I'm gonna bring to the light, and they're really cool.
yeah,
I'm really excited for those. Yeah, Airball's freaking hard game. A lot of fun if you like a challenge.
yeah. I don't really know anything about
But
that one. I'll have to check it
yeah,
out.
it's a unique game, and it's the first NES game that I've ever published,
Hmm.
so that was pretty neat. And having a GBA and an NES version, it was really cool. That had never really gotten properly published. It's really cool to have the opportunity to work with it.
Yeah, that's cool. So
But it's like,
you know, focusing on multiple different platforms.
yeah. Now it's like, oh man, I have Super Nintendo, Sega, Genesis, and Mega Drive, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Dreamcast, N64, working on Sega Saturn, working on CDI, working on a couple of PC releases. So yeah, we have a lot
Cool.
of stuff in the bank.
Hit me up when that CDI game comes out.
Dude, I have 4
No
CDI
way.
games coming out. So
I
yeah.
I just got myself a proper controller for the CDI, so I can actually play it now.
Okay.
You know that
Yeah.
SNES
Instead of the
style one.
crazy looking,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Instead of the crazy one that they had a little
Oh god,
remote control.
that's
Yeah,
impossible.
it's another one of those where I'm just kind of doing it for the passion of it because I know it's an obscure system. It's not like this like huge money maker kind of thing. It's just I really like those obscure. I bought a 3DO and a CDI like this last year
Yeah.
just to like mess with them. Freaking love them. They're so fun.
No way. I would love to get a 3DO. That's one of the only systems I still don't have.
Dude, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
if you're into that kind of stuff, like bad systems, I don't think they're all that terrible. They were just overshadowed by better systems, but they're fun. They're a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Especially with the
Yeah.
CDI. They thought that was going to be the future.
Yeah,
How wrong they were.
Oh boy. Yeah, oh boy. There's some fun games for it, but yeah, again, it was overshadowed by much better consoles.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, even the bad systems do have some good games.
For sure, yeah. Like I said, I've had a lot of fun with those two consoles. That I went in expecting them to be like just trash, like I was gonna want to sell them. And now I'm like, no, I'm trying to look for games for them to publish.
Yeah. I've been thinking about doing a video for the CDI just to cover some of the actual good games
Yeah.
for it because
There's some
I
good
think
ones.
people
Yeah,
will be surprised.
yeah, there's some really good ones. Well, I'll have to try to make my announcement soon so you could talk about my game.
Yeah, do it. I'll try and time it with the video.
Because it's a good one, man. You'll like it.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll have to let me know.
Oh man, I've got so many future plans. I'm just really grateful that I'm able to even do this kind of stuff. So it's just like I'm just trying to keep the gun loaded, so to speak. So there's a lot going on. I think I have about maybe 12 games that are going into publishing that are certain. So I have a pretty fat year coming up.
How about on the development side? Are you actually working on anything yourself at the minute?
I announced that I was working on a Dreamcast game kind of in the back, and then I had my daughter, which she
Yeah.
takes up
Slow
like,
things down a bit.
oh man. Yeah, she's asleep right now, and I'm like, thank God, you can have a chance for the podcast without a screaming baby in the back. But yeah, she slowed things down a whole lot. She's great. Don't get me wrong. I love you. Yeah, yeah, a good slowdown for sure. But yeah, I didn't expect it to. Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect it to be as crazy as it is, and everybody warns you, but no amount of words can tell you, what it's gonna be like. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that I put it on the back burner because I am working on it, like just a lot less frequently, and it's gonna take a lot more time to get it finished. But it's kind of like a hack and slash, beat 'em up kind of zombie. The way that I made it is like 1,000 zombies rush you, and you're just freaking like, and yeah, it's cool. It's yeah. Hopefully, I can get it done this year.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Again,
like
hit me up when it's ready.
Yeah, it's like a 4-player co-op experience too. So I love that couch
Yeah.
co-op. Yeah, it's
That's brilliant. Dreamcast's doing really well at the minute for new games as well. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
cool
Yeah.
companies that are releasing cool games. Yeah, and I really, I'm a real big advocate for any company that's going to be doing that kind of thing. Any journalist like you, or any company that's going to be working with feeding these old retro games and consoles, like that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Keeping the dream alive.
Got to,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, got to. I'm really grateful for people like you who are doing that for sure. So, thank you.
Yeah, again, it's all out of passion, just
Yeah,
like what you're doing.
same.
Obviously, if I just wanted views, there's a lot easier ways to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. More gimmicky
Yeah,
stuff, yeah. But
yeah,
we love what we do, and we do what we
yeah.
love.
And I hope people appreciate, the sincerity of it, and
Yeah. They
the
seem
fact
to,
that we are
yeah.
doing it. Yeah,
Yeah, they seem
absolutely.
to. Yeah. It's fun. I enjoy it. And I'm like again thankful for you having me on to talk about it. It's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.